Thanks, everybody. Good to be back up here. It's been an exciting day and a half. Glad to have Alex Holmes here, CEO of MoneyGram. As Monica introduced, we announced a partnership with MoneyGram in June. From my point of view, it was a pretty transformative deal, not for the remittance business, which I'll let Alex talk more about. This is sliding down. But I think it was a pretty transformative deal for the crypto industry, because I think for so much of the industry, it's been focused on speculation. And this was a first, I think, really at scale, the second largest money transmitter in the world, representing 5% of global market share, using a digital asset to solve some of the problems we've been talking about. So I think a very transformative deal for the crypto industry. But most of the talking up here is going to be me interviewing Alex and talking about what's going on, which is a nice, pleasant change for me, because I'm used to the opposite. So, well, maybe I'll start by, tell us a little bit about MoneyGram, how you ended up there. You've been CEO for how long, and kind of the brief introduction there.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for allowing me to be here this week. It's been pretty exciting for us. Good opportunity to showcase MoneyGram a little bit, and also talk with some people that I probably never thought I'd talk to. So that's pretty great. For us at MoneyGram, we've been going through a digital transformation. I became CEO in 2016, having joined back in 2009. So I've been there a bit over 10 years, and I had worked at Western Union prior to that. So I have a lot of passion for the remittance industry and what we do for the world. But at the same time, it's an industry that's changed a lot. It's been under a lot of pressure from a variety of different factors, digital being one, regulatory being another, banking being another, licensing requirements. So just an amazing amount of change over the last several years. And for us, it's really been about how do we think differently, how do we reposition ourselves, and where can we go in the future. So I think our partnership is a key part of that. But it's interesting times, generally speaking, so it's a lot of fun.
Well, let's take a step back. Talk to me more about your view of the remittance landscape and kind of how it is evolving. You touched on that a little bit, but what are some of the key opportunities, milestones, hurdles you see coming up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I answer that differently depending on where I am. Generally, I'm a pretty honest guy, and I'll say the thing that's amazed me the most in the last 10 years is the amount of pressure that some of the legacy players like MoneyGram, like Western Union have been under. But yet, and actually the reason for that, right? So you think about regulatory and banking and licensing and all these challenges, and yet the world is like flooded with all these people that want to be in the cross-border remittance space. And my question is always like, why do you want to be in this space? But seriously, it's incredibly interesting, because there is something magical about trying to unlock the world, and how do you literally get payments to move at real time. And so you see a lot of competitors coming in. But I think you said it yesterday really well, not the way I would particularly describe it, I suppose, but you said there's a lot of hacks out there, right? And if you think about the fundamental challenge with moving money or data, for that matter, around the world, is that there's just not a lot of real coordination around it, right? The fact that SWIFT even exists to bring banks together intuitively doesn't make a lot of sense. There should be other solutions to that. There should be simpler ways to connect those pieces. And so companies like MoneyGram have a very unique position in the world. We run a global net settlement engine that enables consumers to move money real time. But money doesn't move real time. You can move data real time, but money won't move real time. And so how do you push that forward, and how do you think differently? And we have the advantage of being in 200 countries and territories all around the world. We see the individual needs of consumers, the individual needs of businesses, how commerce could be, how the world could be, but yet it's just not where it needs to be. So I think what we've done, what others like us have done, is really enabled the flow of funds in a variety of different ways. But the industry is growing. Cross-border payments continues to grow. Cross-border remittances continue to grow. Migration patterns continue to increase. And despite a lot of the challenges, whether that be political or geopolitical or economic, the world continues to move, and money continues to move. And so thinking about how do you push that forward, I think is incredibly interesting. So right now we're seeing, in general, a balance between cash and digital. And I think right now, if you think about any industry, retail, banking, our industry in the remittance space, what do consumers want to do on a daily basis? You're going to go buy something. You're going to use a credit card. You're going to go online. You're going to go direct to that retailer. You're going to go through like an Amazon, right? So you have to be almost omnipresent, right, to address every consumer. And so that's a lot of what the investments that we've been doing have been about in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's an exciting couple of years ahead, I think, for you guys. You know, one of the things that Alex and I were talking backstage that I learned for the first time, maybe I'll segue to, your exposure to crypto. You share with the audience what you shared with me. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. So I have a secret passion for crypto. So got into a very tall mining operation a number of years back, and that was sort of my first foray. I didn't quite understand what the point was, but all I knew is that if you set up miners, you could actually make free money. So I thought that was pretty cool and certainly unique. My friend Scott and I have been playing with that and experimenting in a variety of different ways, and so it was a lot. You have to learn, you have to understand it. And my first foray, I think, like a lot of people, was a lot of skepticism, right? This makes sense, but what's the point? What's the purpose? What's the application? But I think in the last, for me anyway, in the last 5 years, that's crystallized in a variety of different ways. So
talk more about that. What was for, we obviously had been talking on and off for a period of time, a handful of months. Was there an aha moment in our conversations that crystallized the opportunity of partnering?
Yeah, I'm going to take this a slightly different direction, then I'll pivot back to answer your question. So.
That's great, by the way, because that's usually what I do.
No, exactly. Actually, I wanted to poke some fun at you for a second. So, actually, what really made me interested in the space was, as we always joke back at MoneyGram, we're sort of the suit and tie people, and all the new guys coming in, the disruptors, are all wearing gray T-shirts and white T-shirts and black T-shirts, and then I show up at this conference thinking, hey, like I'm finally with the cool kids, and then there's nothing but people in suits and ties, and I'm thinking I've like died and gone to banker hell, and it turns out that every single person in a tie is like from Ripple, and I'm like, what the heck did I do to myself? Because I thought I was like moving forward. So anyway, I fell backwards.
We've regressed.
Yeah, we've regressed a little bit. So anyway, coming back to what was sort of the aha moment. So I think it was really about continuing to think through, the first time we had a conversation, we immediately went out and tried to figure out, hey, how do you use XRapid right now ODL, on-demand liquidity. But we started thinking through that and looking at it going, I'm not sure I kind of get it. But when you think about what we do as a business, we really run two different things. We run a very consumer-facing business where we have to have the right interfaces, the right conversations with our consumers, and money has to move, at least for the consumer, real time. Right. As we all know, it doesn't. The data moves, and then our agency partners or our banks, pay out on our behalf and receive, and then we run a global net settlement engine. So all the treasury management, all the treasury applications behind that, that's really where the magic is, and that's where we have, pre-positioned pools of liquidity, all around the world. The aha moment, I think, became, talking through what it was you were thinking about doing with RippleNet and with ODL, and thinking, if we could actually pair these transactions off, if we could actually make this work, we could move data and money literally at the same time. And a little bit of it is, having backups, having new future pieces, blockchain, and thinking through tokenization and data regulation and everything else. It just intuitively makes sense to dig in and give it a try, and you're also a hell of a sales guy, so what can I say?
I was persistent.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
One of the things I thought would be interesting to talk about is, I know from our conversations, MoneyGram is looking at how to apply blockchain technologies beyond just what you're doing with Ripple and some other things. You have some other experimentation going on. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do. We have an innovation lab that we started a few years back, and we have a couple guys here, Yale and Bart, who've done an amazing job, kind of putting that together. And we're experimenting with a variety of different things, but also trying to bring some real applications to life. So, tokenization of data is a big piece of that. We're actually migrating a lot of our legacy systems to cloud and looking at how can we use blockchain, DLT to actually help improve a lot of the ledger technology along the way and some of the core systems and applications. Obviously, we're doing a lot with ODL today, and also pushing into RippleNet as well in the coming coming weeks and months.
So tell me more about what, obviously some in the audience know this because you guys have talked about it publicly on your earnings calls and those things, but tell the group more about what you're doing with OTL and the corridors that you have live today, and then we'll talk to me about where we're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. The thing I love about OTL at the moment is that we're sort of completely in the forefront of this. As we go around and talk, I think there's a lot of skeptical people out there still, and you know, I'm here to say, I guess I was one of them, and now I am not. There's still a lot to do and a lot to learn. I think the biggest learning for us has been how fast we can move and how exciting it really is. I mean, to be able to see transactions go to, you know, for example, U.S. to Mexico, which is the biggest corridor we have right now. We're moving, you know, $350 transfers to Mexico literally, you know, every second, you know, sub-seconds. We're moving just and settling, you know, billions of dollars. And so the question becomes, how do you take that and pair that off with your liquidity pools that are sitting, you know, out there and beyond that? So, you know, for us, I think getting U.S. to Mexico up, I think we're pushing almost today about 10% of our volume that we normally do to Mexico through the OTL platform. It's working extremely well. We've now opened into 4 new corridors that we're beginning to scale, and I think that those will continue to ramp in the coming weeks and months. And you know, at the end of the day, pairing off our transaction flows with the currency flows really gives a lot of efficiency and scale to what we do. You know, positioning Mexican pesos, waiting for transactions to flow through, banks not being open on weekends. You know, your access to foreign currencies is pretty complicated. I think we do foreign currency trading better than anyone in the world. I would challenge anybody to do a better job than we do with exotic currencies. The way that we pair and match corridors around the world, yet you're leaving a lot of money parked out there, and you're sort of guessing real time that the funds are going to flow through. You get into holidays and weekends, things slow down in a material way. So when you think about OTL, so X-Rapid, you used to have a lot of X products, XVIA, X-Rapid, X whatever, and I could never remember which of the 3 did what. So OTL actually makes perfect sense, on-demand liquidity. So what is, yeah, it's very descriptive, I like it. You know, we're MoneyGram, so we transfer money, so the 2 pair off nicely, but literally having that on-demand liquidity, so knowing how many pesos I moved, what time of day, what the peso rate was, and then be able to actually buy your pesos at that same time, land them in Mexico for the purposes of settling, is really pretty phenomenal. It's pretty amazing.
So talk to me about, you shared a moment ago that you guys have moved about 10% of your volume into Mexico using OTL. What are the limitations to increasing that?
Well, I mean, I think the limitations at the moment is this is new. I mean, this is completely different, right? And so the beautiful thing about MoneyGram is that we do have liquidity pools around the world. We move literally, you know, billions of dollars. So the money is there. The question is, how do you move it efficiently? You guys have an amazing technology, interesting platform that can help us do that, but it needs to come to life. You need buyers and sellers, market makers, as you say, on both sides of the transaction to actually make it efficient. And I think that just takes time and momentum to build. So I think for us, that was kind of the big learning. I think when you joke that I'm pushing you, it's like, I'm like, come on, man, get the market open, let's get going. But I realize that takes time. And so for me, that was kind of a learning. I think the other big learning for me was probably the role the exchanges play. Right. I was, with all due respect to my banking friends, I was excited to get out of banks, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, now I got to deal with exchanges. You know, I'm like, what? I think I said to Kahina, I was like, what do you mean you don't have that on that exchange? Like, you just do it. And I was like, no, you can't do it. I'm like, really? So that was sort of an interesting aha as well. Yeah, so I mean, I think those are limitations. But the liquidity pools, when they become available, suddenly, I think, change those markets. And then I think that should bring in more people, more customers, more players. And as that helps, it just becomes, I think, a replicable, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That you get more efficient on trades, you get more efficient on rates when you compare those pieces off.
there's a saying we use of liquidity begets liquidity, and one of the things that we talked about.
Probably nicer than chicken and an egg, yeah.
But what's been interesting, I think, for both of us to watch is at a time, and certainly beneficial to Bitso, at a time overall crypto liquidity reduced from kind of June through maybe today. The overall market liquidity went down a bunch.
Yep.
The liquidity in MXN to XRP actually is way up because of what we're seeing there. So
yeah, no, I think that's right. And you know, what we're looking now in a lot of the Asian markets. So looking at Philippines, the interface with Australia, you know, having conversations with Japan, other countries. You know, one of the most inefficient things about our settlement process as being a U.S. company is that everything is always kind of reverting back to U.S. dollars, right? And so it doesn't make a lot of sense if you need Australian dollars and you need Filipino pesos and you need U.S. dollars. You know, why can't you sort of para those off and just net it through an XRP platform? And I think for me, that's what gets really pretty interesting is how do you think about not only optimizing the funds flows on a per transaction basis, but then how do you actually pair that back off in terms of the net settlement as well?
Right.
And I think if you can tie those together, and those are the conversations that we've been having, I think it's just going to transform and push this forward in a really, really amazing way.
I'm going to open up to questions in a moment or two, so just for people who would like to be ready in a moment. But maybe as a final question up here, talk to me. You mentioned earlier opening new corridors, talked a little about net settlement. Other things, you've been here for the last day and a half, had a lot of conversations.
Yep. How
How else do you see kind of the Ripple MoneyGram partnership expanding? Anything else you'd want to offer up?
Yeah, sure. No, I think a few pieces. I think we have not been a big user of RippleNet yet. I think we've been so focused on OTL and the platform there and the success that we've had that we really haven't had that chance to think differently about that. So a lot of the conversation with partners here has been learnings on RippleNet and how we can take advantage of that. You know, I think for us, getting in to real-time transfers, so bank deposit transfers, wallet transfers using RippleNet, I think is a pretty exciting opportunity for us. I also think utilizing what we have extremely strong around the world is also the cash in and cash out.
Right.
And I think that no matter what happens with the world in terms of crypto account services, account payments, cash is going to be there for a very, very long time. So cash in, cash out, critical for the world. We do that extremely well, and so I think that there's an opportunity for us to plug into the network in a very different way and open those systems up and those fund flows to our partners in the room and those that are interested in joining. So that's a huge piece. And then I do think still the magic is going to be completely pairing off RippleNet transactions with ODL, right? Because I think getting that perfectly paired transaction, so for the first time ever, you'd be able to say that money moved with the data.
Yep.
And completed the transaction, and that's it. And I think that would be just phenomenal.
Awesome. All right, I will open it up to questions out in the audience. I might have one or two more for Alex as we go here, but I'll see. There's a Mr. Arrington. I see your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
We'll repeat the question, but you're pretty loud. The question was partnering with Ripple one of the best or the best decisions of your life? I think was the question exactly.
Let me maybe answer this way, which I always, one of my favorite phrases. I think time will tell, but so far so good.
Actually, I'm curious about this. Well, no, I say this in a really positive way. I think so far.
I knew I should have brought that contract addendum up here with me to get that.
No, I think had you told me when we signed the contract in June and announced the contract in June that we would be live as quickly as we were and have as much volume as quickly, I would not have believed you.
No, you would not have believed me, that's for sure, because you were definitely in the bully pulpit for a while there telling me that this was what's going to happen and this, and I was like, all right, well, I got a good team down here. And, you know, we've got, as I mentioned, the two good guys here and a really nice product team, great IT developers. Our leader here, Camilla, has been amazing, and I think we've just pushed it really, really hard. So I understand, too, and I don't remember what it was, but the last meeting that we had with your team, I think you're making some enhancements to the platform based on some of the things that we had built.
Yeah,
which I think was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, we're learning, and I will say, I think for us, MoneyGram, you have exceeded our expectations of being just very aggressive and out there and making it happen more quickly. But all right, other questions out there?
Hello.
Right here.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jubin. So I was also excited to leave a bank at one point of time and join the tech world. I used to run correspondent banking for an international bank for quite some time, and I've seen how 50 years ago it's been the same way that banks have been selling correspondent banking. Given your experience in MoneyGram and what you've been doing on the payment space, where do you see the payments landscape? How is it going to change in the next 5 years? And where is it headed? And do you see a point of singularity being reached in the next 5 to 10 years where you see payments happening seamlessly across different networks, across different countries?
Wow.
Big.
Yeah, that is. I'll take a couple different slices at that. I think first and foremost, it's always interesting. I think you said it quite well. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? So, my fascination with correspondent banking is sort of like never ending. I have a saying that goes something like this: banks always win. And the reason I say that is it's where the money ends up, right? So even through all of this, at the end of the day, what we're trying to get is back to fiat currency, and fiat currency has to land in a bank along the way somewhere, right? So all the trades that we do on OTL, everything else through the platform, through the exchanges, phenomenal, right? And then it lands in a bank account. So I think at the end of the day, banks have a huge opportunity to really think differently and really kind of push the agenda forward. I think central banks in particular play a very interesting role in that. And the other saying I always sort of have going on in the back of my mind is that there's really no incentive for any country to want money to enter or leave in a rapid fashion, right? And so part of the challenge with correspondent banking is that banks themselves and central banks slow the flow of funds down deliberately, right? So all of us in this room, to a large degree, are trying to figure out ways to speed that up. And I think the challenge with that is that you're sort of fighting against these forces that are saying we have no interest in speeding it up. And I think all the news that's come out, and sort of the challenges with Libra and some of the other things that are happening, I think is reflective of that, right? What's ironic about it in some respects is that blockchain, right, is in theory more transparent than anything else, yet it's the most feared thing that's ever happened. So I think if central banks get on board with it and start thinking very differently about how they look at the flow of funds and how they think about utilizing their systems and applications to help speed up payment flows within country, I think that would massively improve the ability for cross-border to also speed up. So I think in the meantime, there's going to be this type of swell, for lack of a better word, right? Of people really
perfect word.
Yeah, man. It's like when you're looking for notes, you can stare at the screen and see swells.
Swell.
But quite honestly, I do fundamentally believe that it's going to continue to be this forces like Ripple and others pushing against that and saying, what can we do differently? How can we make this work more efficiently and make it work better? So I think regulation plays a strong role in that as well, and that's something that really needs to catch up in a big way, because I think typically regulators slow it all down because they also want to catch up and try to understand it. And so I think that you see these movements forward, and then you slow a little bit, and then you see another step function forward. So I'm very bullish on payments in the next 5-10 years. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think there's going to be some consolidation, but then there's going to be some new pieces of movement as well.
I'm going to go to the audience. One more question before we go back out there. I see a question over here, but you touched on Libra. One of the things I found interesting was when the Libra white paper was first announced, there were specifically call-outs about, hey, if Libra is successful, you'll never need, they referenced Western Union.
Right.
I'm curious what your reaction was when some of that news came out.
Well, the way I interpreted sort of the Libra was if it's successful, no one needs anything anymore. So that was kind of where I went. But No, I found it kind of interesting, right? I mean, I think what they were trying to do from, create a stable coin, but then you have to actually back it with fiat currency, to me is sort of ironic, right? I also think at the end of the day, the fact that there was such an overreaction to it from a government perspective says two things. One is I don't think they did a good enough job preparing the regulatory environment, and that's something that we've done a lot of socialization and work with. But the second thing too is, the volume of payments around the world is in the trillions, right? So $1 billion of backed, crypto is not really going to change anything or put any sort of payments flows at risk. So, I'd like to, I'm not necessarily rooting for Libra, but I'd like to see successes in that space in a more, I think, deliberate way, because I do think it helps people think about the future and how do we move it forward.
Yep. All right. There's a question, I think, over here.
Right here.
I don't know if you have a microphone or not.
Question over here?
Oh, yep. Oh, that mic's
right
not
here.
working.
Right over here, Brad.
Oh, wait, over here. This mic's working.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll come back to you in one moment.
All right, guys. Dustin Planholt, Cryptonaires, Crypto Documentary. Question is, what excites you the most? And going forward, what challenges do you see? And as well as your partnership, what do you see overall?
Is that for me or for you?
Dustin?
For you first, and then I'm going to ask Brad to chime in.
All right.
Again, I literally fundamentally believe that, if the combination of these services and products plus whatever may be coming in the future can actually begin to move money with data, I mean, to me, that's the most exciting thing that we can possibly do, right? Pairing off all of our transactions perfectly, taking that volatility out of the market and actually literally moving things real time. To me, that's, I think, the most exciting aspect of what we're trying to create. But there's a lot to do. You have to build markets, you have to build product, you have to put the payments out there. So, it's a roadmap. It's a journey, right?
Yeah. I'll just offer up, what I find most exciting about how things have evolved is a year ago we were talking about OTL, at the time XRapid, as an idea.
Yep.
Wasn't live. We had done some test transactions, and now we're sitting up here in a position where we got more than 24 customers. We got real liquidity. It feels very real, and taking something from experimentation. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in the room in various ways. Taking something from experimentation to actual production, and as you said, we've learned from each other, I think, during that journey. We'll continue to do that, and so I'm excited by that. I'm excited by the regulatory wins. The trend line on the regulatory side, I think, is very positive, and I think we saw that from some of the panelists that you've seen up here. That there's still some uncertainty, there's still some lack of clarity, but if I were a betting man, I think the trend line is really positive.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dustin. And over here, I think.
Yeah, sorry, Shane Nixon from Hollis Wealth, Canada. Just curious as to know, are you able to quantify any of the sort of cost savings and whatnot, and how that reflects on your bottom line? And do you see that sort of growing as you expand from 10% and up type of thing? Will be there more economies of scale, more savings there, or can you quantify that on a per transaction basis or your margins?
Yeah, it's a little hard to quantify in total. I mean, it is a very small part of our global settlement platform at the moment. So on a per transaction basis, what's interesting is typically we're playing in sort of a spot or forward market. I think what's interesting about foreign exchange is that the more you buy farther out, the cheaper it is. But that doesn't really help you in a real time fashion, right? So. To me, it's about balancing the two pieces, and so we are seeing funds flow. It's really fun. We've built some interfaces, and you can actually see the transactions flowing. You can buy the XRP, you can sell it back, you can actually see the money deposited into our bank account, right? And it's all real time, and it's happening virtually instantly. I think it's, within a minute we've sort of cleared the trade. Within 15 minutes you get a refresh on your bank account in Mexico that shows that the money's landed there. So I would say that it's in a percentage basis, it's definitely improving. I would say that we're actually going through some ups and downs a little bit. I mean, sometimes this market is not the most efficient for a peso trade, right? So we don't necessarily execute the trade if it's not the right trade to make. So we're still balancing the two, and we're still learning. And as liquidity grows and becomes more available to us, then there'll be more opportunity to really do that. But right now, the scale of it and the size of it is a little small to be completely benefiting the bottom line, but definitely efficiencies are coming through for sure.
Another question out here? Oh, right over here.
Thank you. I'm Noam from GMT in Tel Aviv. Full disclosure, we're a MoneyGram agent in Tel Aviv.
Yes, you are.
He sort of stole Alex's attention in his visit to Tel Aviv with the Ripple
Oh, that's
MoneyGram.
right.
Yeah, I was driving around in vans like on the phone.
You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of macro questions. I'd like to ask a micro question. I've heard over the last day and a half this repeated multiple times, can't wire money on a Sunday. But like Alex said, you're still dependent on the local banks and the exchanges at both ends of the XRP transaction. Does it really solve the problem? That exchange still needs to credit your payout partner in Mexico or wherever it may be. And they're dependent on the local bank.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Go ahead. Why don't you start?
You know, I think that, as Alex described earlier, there are limitations depending upon the bank receiving and are they 24/7, what their limitations are. And as Alex described, there's some banks that are leaning in and making changes to their core systems to reflect that. There's some banks that I think are not. And it depends where you are in the world, and it depends which kind of partner you have in that regard that I think will influence how that plays out. One of the things Alex and I said backstage to each other, which I very much believe, is those that engage early and make some of these changes, and even MoneyGram participating in RippleNet early, I think there are first mover, early mover advantages that will accrue not just to the MoneyGrams, but also to the customers that are able to benefit from that. But you're exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a whole system end to end, and if there's one broken chain link in the chain, then it's not going to fully have the funds there.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, too, at the end of the day, right? I mean, so some of this becomes the question of, is that fiat translation always necessary? And I think that that's the other big part of this, right? Which I think was at the end of the day, you know, if you're sort of, I'll go out over my skis here a bit and say, but if you're kind of a pure crypto fan, it's really not about ever translating it back to fiat again, right? So then you have a completely different way of looking at that. So if I'm just doing an XRP handoff versus actually trying to trade in and out, it's kind of a different conversation as well. So I do think some of it is a bit of a time evolution, and it's also sort of a utility and a need for the consumer. But there's different ways to think about it than always translating it back into the fiat piece, and that's part of what we're also trying to solve for.
Alex, it's great to have you here. It's great to be a partner of MoneyGram. We're so excited by the future. Thank you for joining us out here today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all. Appreciate it very much.